Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Tuesday Thoughts with Mike, your mentor. Hope that your Tuesday was good. Sorry, I'm coming in a little bit later than usual. I get in that work grind and I just focus in and look up, and next thing you know, I'm like, oh man, I need to jump in and holler at some people. So, welcome. If you're new to this page, appreciate you being here. If you are watching this live, maybe you could comment hashtag live below, or if you're watching the replay, hashtag replay. And by all means, show me some love. Leave your comments, questions down below. Tonight, I want to talk to you, or I want to share something with you that was on my mind recently, and I shared it with someone else, and I think that it's a good lesson for a lot of people. It was a good lesson for me, and I was fortunate enough to be able to see that and have that in my life, and I'll explain that in a little bit more here in a minute. If you're new to this page, appreciate you checking it out. So, short version of my story is grew up without a father, and it just wrecked me, right? Felt abandoned, felt rejected, and to be honest with you, at that age, I didn't quite understand what that felt like. I just knew that there was this woundedness inside of me, and I was doing almost everything I could to deal with that, right, to mitigate that feeling. And people turn to all kinds of things when they have things go sideways in their lives, right, to try to medicate. And my thing was attention from girls, and I'd take all the attention that I could get. And for me personally, caused me to hurt a lot of people, as well as hurt myself in a lot of different ways that I've talked about before. But part of my story, and I've been on this journey to discover what manhood really looks like as I grew from a young boy into, I guess, a man body-wise. But I quickly discovered that just because you're of age, or you've grown up and now you've kind of matured physically, that's not what makes you a man. And you can walk into a room and you could ask three different guys, when did you become a man? And you'll get three different answers, especially in Western society, when there's really no rite of passage for men that really makes it apparent and concrete as to when we become men. So, made a lot of mistakes on this journey, and this page is my attempt to share that, to share those mistakes and the lessons learned and all the wisdom that's been poured into me over all the years with anybody who's willing to listen. Because as my coach used to say in college, there's two ways to learn things. You can learn things yourself by going through them, or you can learn things from watching other people and seeing what they've done wrong or done right. And there's another saying. It's something like, I don't remember. It's something like a foolish man learns twice, and a wise man learns once from watching other people. Something along those lines. So, anyways, if I can be your example of what to do or what not to do, then so be it. Use that, leverage it. So tonight I want to talk to you about the power of patience and giving up control. And to do that, I want to tell you a little story. So there was a father and a daughter, and growing up, the daughter was one of, four children. And even though the father never said it verbally, the daughter was the favorite child. And the brothers and sisters picked up on this. They knew it. It didn't have to be spoken. But as the daughter grew older, she started to make decisions for herself, and cause a lot of hurt to the father. And then there came a point in time where that relationship grew apart, and the daughter became extremely upset with her father. So much to the point where she refused to speak to the father. She would come over for family functions like Thanksgiving and Christmas, and she couldn't even be in the same room as the father. If he tried to greet her, if he tried to hug her or kiss her, she would leave the room. She would say, "Leave me alone." She'd say, "I don't want anything to do with you," and she would go sit in another room. She couldn't even stand to be in the same space as him. And this crushed the father, right? Because to him, this was always his little girl. And it broke his heart. And day after day, he would sit out in his shop, and he would talk to his grandson about what he did wrong as a father. And he would say things like, "What should I do? What can I do to restore the relationship?" Now, the grandson had a unique perspective, right? Because he got to see his grandfather's point of view, and he got to see his mother's point of view. And he would tell his grandfather, "Listen, there's nothing that you can do. You're just going to have to be patient and let God work. The more you try to force the relationship back together, the more distance you're going to put between yourself and your daughter." And the grandfather would cry, and he would shake his head, and he just couldn't understand it at that time. So the second year comes around, and now the daughter, her heart is softened a little bit more. And instead of staying in the other room during family events, she would come in the same room. She still wouldn't acknowledge her father. She wouldn't look at him. She wouldn't speak to him. If he tried to hug her, if he tried to greet her, same as before, she would pull away. She would distance herself. And it tore the father up to be what he felt was ignored like that, after everything that he had done for the daughter. And the same routine would take place. He would sit out in his shop, and he would cry, and he would rack his brain on how he could fix the problem, right? He couldn't let it go. It was part of who he was. He was stubborn as a mule. So the third year comes around, and now the daughter can be in the room, and her heart is softened a little bit more, and she can say hi to her father, right? But that's as far as it goes. And the father would get needy. The daughter would say hi, and the father wouldn't leave it at that. He'd summon up a little bit of courage, go in for a hug, go in for a kiss. She'd pull away, and she'd be like, "I'm not ready, no." And she'd go sit down. And he'd have to relive that heartbreak all over again. And this played itself out several times throughout the year. And the shop scene would play itself out again several times throughout the year. And then in the fourth year, the daughter's heart softened even more. So now she could be in the same room. She could greet her father, and she would even allow the father to give her a hug, right? And he felt a little bit of love, and that little bit of love would bring out the neediness in him, and he would want more. So then he'd go back to pushing it, right? And in his effort to try to meet his desire to have his daughter love him like she used to, he would break her boundaries and offend her, and then she'd withdraw. And it was so hard for him to understand that, because he was too close to the situation and he couldn't step away and see it objectively. He had too much emotion wrapped up in it. And then finally the 5th year comes around, and now the daughter's heart is completely softened and the relationship is restored. She's in the room, she's greeting, she's allowing for hugs, she's allowing for conversation. And instead of the father sitting in his shop crying about where his little girl has gone and how she doesn't love him anymore, he's crying tears of joy because he's got that relationship back with his daughter. And his daughter is not only coming around for holiday functions, but she's coming there to visit her mom and her dad and to help take care of them and to help them do things around the house, help her mom clean, spend time, take them out for dinner, all these things that she used to do before. Right? So how do I know this? Because if you haven't put it together yet, I was the grandson. And I had the opportunity to watch this play out and to see the disappointment and the hurt and the rejection that my father felt, or my grandfather felt, but at the same time see the boundaries and the boundaries that were broken, and his neediness, and what that did to my mom, because he wouldn't respect the boundaries that she was trying to put in place. And I share this story because on some level all of us know what that's like, right? We get needy. We have something in our lives where that's happening, right? Maybe it's a relationship that's changed and you want it to go back to the way that it was, or it's you want something in your life to change and it's starting to. And we all do exactly what my grandpa did. We try to take control of it, and we try to drive it, we try to steer it. Sometimes there's a place for that, but a lot of times there's not. And the reason that is because there's a lesson to learn in the journey. And if we don't learn that lesson, we just repeat that journey over and over again. Don't know why. Well, I do know why, but I don't know why the way that's just the way it is. Right? Why it was designed like that, or why it's meant to be like that. Right? And I experienced that in my own life. Right? I go from pretty much dropping a nuclear bomb on my marriage to coming home and having to deal with the repercussions of that on a weekly basis, and so desperately wanting my wife to show me some affection, to tell me she loves me, and everything that goes along with that, where she'd show me a little bit of grace and give me a little bit of that, and my neediness would just spring out like a lion, trying to capture, an antelope, and I would smother her, and I wouldn't respect the boundaries. I wouldn't respect the natural distance that I had caused in our relationship. And it was good for me to want to have that reconciliation, right? To want to move back into relationship with my wife. But it wasn't good for me to try to force that. for me to try to take control. And that's one of the hardest things in life, is taking your hands off the frickin' wheel, right? And having some faith that things are going to work out, especially when it doesn't seem like it's possible, right? When you come home and your wife's got all her bags packed and in the middle of the living room floor, and she says, I can't do this anymore, I need to leave. How do you not want to take control and fix the situation? Try to force yourself back into relationship. So I just wanted to share that with you tonight, just because it was on my heart and my mind, and I ended up sharing that story with someone else. And there's a lot to learn in that story. So my hope for you would be that if you find yourself in a situation, whatever it is in your life right now, where maybe you're being a little too needy and maybe you don't realize it, and this is a wake-up call for you to kind of step back and relinquish a little bit of control. And as hard as it may be, as hurtful as it may be, trust the process, trust the journey that you're on, and don't be in such a rush to get through it just so you can alleviate that emotional or mental pain that you're experiencing. Because in that is the real lesson, right? Because that's when the real change takes place. And that's what helps you not experience that lesson again and repeat those things. So, hope that makes a difference in your life. So we'll say goodnight from me and from Miss Bell. And we'll see you guys tomorrow for Wednesday Wisdom. Love you. Bye.